This is the Benson Gregory Podcast. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Your support means a lot. Now, here's your host.
Hey, Benson Gregory here. Obviously, a beautiful sunny day. I want to thank you for watching this interview. It's a podcast I did with Magdalene Rose. She is a Christian metal artist who faced some controversy here recently. You may have seen her popping up where churches were booking her, and then like a higher up or an elder or somebody would come along and cancel the concert after the fact because they found out she was a metal artist or that she was dressing a little bit goth or emo or whatever your take is. But they didn't like the way she looked. They didn't like that she screamed, growled, that kind of thing. So they were canceling the shows. And she has such an incredible take on it. We get to know her heart. But what I really wanted to warn you about was she was literally on the road when we talked. They're touring, and she was in the motor coach headed across the Southwest U.S. I think they were in Arizona at the time. And cell signal was a little bit rough in places. So the video freezes a little bit, audio stutters some, but you can hear it fine. It's a great message. Just stick with it. And I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview we did. And without further ado, here is my podcast with Magdalene Rose. And Magdalene Rose joins us today. Thank you so much for taking time out of the tour to chat with us for a little while.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Now, I was telling you that you guys came onto my radar. Unfortunately, sort of through controversy. There was a bit of a problem that came about, and I guess it's been going on for a little while, and you spoke out about it and released a video, and it got picked up by a lot of Christian social media, and that's where it
Yeah.
showed up on my feed and how I discovered you. And the more I read about you and the more I learned about you, I was like, I need to talk to her. She sounds really cool. So
Yeah.
let's start that's to tease what's coming up. We're going to talk about controversy. We're going to talk about issues in the church. We're going to talk about all kinds of crazy stuff. So there's your tabloid tease. But you're Magdalene Rose, and Magdalene Rose, you're the singer in. Would it be correct to call it a metal band, a Christian metal band?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what our genre specific title is because we've got metal songs, we've got pop punk songs that don't have any like remotely close to metal music in there. We'd have a bit of both in some songs, but I don't know. I just tell people we're a rock band because there's so many people that get so angry at me when I'm like, oh yeah, we're a metal band. Like, no, you're not. I'm like, oh, we're not a metal band. Yes, you are. So I'm like, I don't know.
It's funny. I was listening to your stuff in the truck over the weekend and riding around with my wife, and I'm like, she reminds me a little bit of No Doubt. I'm hearing some Gwen Stefani in there
Yeah.
from the early 2000s. And then my wife fired back with Paramore is what she
Mhm.
was reminded of.
That's so
So,
cool.
and
I
and
love both of them.
and so there's a little bit of to me, there's a little bit of punk in there. There's a little bit of pop in there. There's some just good old fashioned rock in
Yeah.
there. And then metal is something that's very, very new to me. So I definitely hear the metal influences on some songs, but you're well within an umbrella, but you're kind of all over the place within that umbrella.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, and that's kind of what our goal was because we get bored if we just stick to one genre.
That's awesome. So, and you're very talented. I mean, the fact that
Thank
I
you.
don't know a ton about music, but to be able to pull off metal all the way over to pop, to me, that is quite a range. And you guys do it expertly. It sounds fantastic. And of course, I love the lyrics. I do confess I'm old. I had to sit down and read some of the lyrics along with you so that I could understand them. But they're great lyrics. It's fantastic music, and I understand why you're coming on so popular because
Thank
you just
you.
have the one album out. Is that accurate?
Yeah, right now we just had the one album out. We released it last year. So we are working on new music. We're hoping to get another album out very soon.
Okay, so typically how it goes is my understanding is you obviously write and produce the album. Then the album gets released and then you go on tour to support the album. And then sometimes it's years later before a second album will come out. And you guys are already working on your second?
Yeah, we're excited. We want to get a lot more music content for people. And so we're already working on new music. We are hoping to have at least a song out within I don't know, very shortly. We're trying to get onto the, like, tail end of finishing a song, because we wanna release a few singles before releasing another album, but we definitely don't want to take a super long time because this first album took like 3 years to finish. Now we're at the point where we're like, okay, let's not take 3 years this time.
Well, there's yes and no, right? Because there's huge expense to producing an album, but I guess with I know technology has kind of helped that out a little bit to where are you able to record some stuff in your home or do you have to go to a professional studio to have that done?
Yeah, so our guitar player Weston actually has learned how to mix and produce and everything, and my husband Blaze, who is our drummer, knows how to record vocals and all of that. So now we have it to where we can do everything in house. So the expense for the last album will hopefully be a lot smaller this time around because we could do a lot more things in house, and we won't be able to like be so constrained by having to go into a studio or something. We have the equipment at our home and we can record at like any time of day, any hour of night. We can work on the music, and that one has helped a lot. We kind of started to do that towards the end of the last album, but we are still getting it mixed and mastered by somebody else. And so now our guitar player has like practiced and has mixed things for Seventh Day Slumber and a few other bands. And so we're like, okay, yeah, I think we could do this one completely in house the next time around.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's a huge step. And you can kind of work on it where you are too, because you can, mix and stuff on the bus or in a hotel or
Yeah.
something like that once you get the files laid down. Um, Talk to me about the music itself. What would you say? We've talked about your kind of a genre all over the place, but lyrically, you seem very centered. Where are the songs coming from? Are they all songs that you or the band has written, or are you getting songs from outside sources?
Yeah, all the songs are written by me, my husband Blaze. We both write the lyrics and melodies, and then musically it's me, Blaze, our guitar player Weston, and then we have a bass player named Eli. He helped write some of the songs, but then he got married and he's touring with a country band now. So we have a new guitar player who is joined with us named Zach, and so on all this new music, it's the four of us working on new stuff together, and so it's very much what we want to say as a band and what kind of music we want to put out as a band. And we're never like opposed to writing with other people. It's just how it's been so far. It's just been the four of us. So yeah, we're excited. We've had a few people reach out about doing co-writes, and I think that would be something fun to do in the future as well. So it's just kind of like finding out time because a lot of those people also tour. So it's like, oh, how do we do this?
Right, right. But it's all kind of coming, it's pouring out from your heart. It's coming from a place inside you,
Yes.
from experiences and stuff.
Mhm.
Talk
Yeah.
to me about some of those. Who is your target audience for your music, first of all? Do you have a demographic in mind, or is there a particular type of person that you have in mind? Who are you feel like your music is for?
I think I've noticed that it's a lot of people who fall into that like emo or metalhead or rock fan genre. Those specific people tend to really, really like it. But I've even seen some outliers of people, especially at concerts, they'll come up to me and they're like, I've never listened to metal music in my life. I don't like that type of music, but I really like your band. And I'm gonna start listening to it. I'm like, that's really cool. But yeah, we do make music that is kind of geared toward like a younger adult crowd, but I think the awesome thing is that a lot of times with music, there isn't quite an age. People can stay young at heart when it comes to music. And so I had somebody's 90-year-old grandma listening to me the other day, and she's like, I just want you to know that my 90-year-old grandma loves you. So don't let what people are saying get you down. So while like the the base target audience is like younger adults who are like in the emo scene, I've seen it expand way beyond that, which is really cool.
I will admit that for some reason, and I don't know why I was trying to explain this to myself recently, and I can't understand, but I would listen to like Alice Cooper. I would listen to, Van Halen, Led Zeppelin, that kind of stuff, secular music. But for Christian music, I always skewed toward, like a Stephen Curtis Chapman, maybe a Petra, but it would tend to be a lot more acoustic, softer, more of a almost a pop sound for Christian music for some reason. I never really understood why I bridged that, and I love that you've come along and you're really kind of that bridge in between the two. It seems like.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that that does help some people who have the kind of same mindset of like, okay, well, I really like this type of music in one area, but I don't really like the same genre in a different area. But it kind of like bridges that gap a little bit.
I think it's great because it gives you something more positive to think about. It puts your mind in the right place when you're, on a Tuesday when you want to hear something a little bit more rock and a little bit more metal.
Yeah.
It's still it because unfortunately some of the lyrics are just not what they should be in secular music, and obviously you guys
Yeah.
are bridging that gap. So you've got this great audience potential, and you're making great music, and you're getting bookings in churches. We're coming up on the controversy now, folks. So pay attention here. So you're getting booked in churches, and then the headline that I saw was people would hear your music and then cancel, or they would see you and cancel. Now, I read that and I thought, when I read hear you, I thought, well, that's dumb. I mean, you're not going to listen to a band before you book them. And then I saw see you, and they would see you, like lay eyes on you and be like, no, we don't want her singing. And I'm like, oh, because I've seen this online. I've seen there's a new trend in bands now to where there are female singers who are wearing lingerie on stage.
Yeah.
And it to me, it's absolutely shocking. My generation did not do that. Uh, and I would not let my son, of course, he's 18 now, so he can do what he wants to, I guess, but I would not approve of him going to a concert with that. So I assumed that it was something more titillating like that. And then so I did a search and I pulled up to see what you looked like and where you were in concert photos and stuff. And you're just wearing black clothes. And so that was kind of putting people off. So evidently people were not doing any research at all and just booking you. Is that what you think was happening? Did they not have a clue who you were when they just kind of pull your name out of a hat?
But that's kind of the hard part because the reason I made the post, the church that had canceled, you know, they had reached out to us about booking this tour. So it wasn't just me, it was me, Seventh Day Slumber, an artist called Nate Parrish who used to play with Cutlass, and then an artist called Jason Dunn, who used to be the lead singer of Hawk Nelson. And so it was a Christian rock tour that had been promoted. It was like, hey, if you want to book it, reach out. And they had reached out, had the tour poster, heard all the music, knew who was going to be there. And that specific concert had been booked for a month already. One of the elders, maybe one of the people in leadership, somebody then saw it and was like, oh, that girl is evil. I don't want her here. And they didn't even listen to the music. They didn't anything. They just saw the poster and was like, the other guys, they're like, and the other guys are all wearing black too. Like, I'm not the only one in black in the poster, but they just saw me and just canceled it without even having a conversation. So then the youth pastor had to call Joseph Rojas, who's the singer of Seventh Day Slumber, and just be like, hey, we're canceling the show. Joseph is my father-in-law, so of course he was quick to like step up for me. I was like, well like what is the problem? Like, so she very openly talks about her relationship with Christ. She has a very big stance on mental health and is reaching out to the youth and is explaining the things that God has brought her through. And she even has her master's degree in crisis counseling. Like, she has gone above and beyond to help people. Like, what is the problem? Is there anything we can do to like keep this show? Like, she can play songs that don't have screaming. I do that all the time. I change my set list to only play the poppier songs for churches that don't like the rock stuff. And he's like, they could play an acoustic set. And he's like, no, we've already canceled it. There's nothing we could do. And
Wow.
that one was specifically just because of my makeup and black clothes. I guess they consider that evil. But churches over the years, it's always come up, like the ones that have called to cancel or the ones who have called be like, oh, we can't have her on the show. It's never something that I'm just like randomly thrown onto the show. If they're booking Seventh Day Slumber, um, Lori is always like, well, hey, we also have another artist traveling with us. Her music is a little on the heavier side, but she has stuff that she can play that's lighter, or she could play an acoustic set. And some of them are really respectful, and they're just like, we love what she's doing, we love her mission, but I think our church congregation just won't quite understand it. And those I'm like, okay, yeah, duh, I'll sit out. Like, I'm not gonna force my music on you if it's not gonna fit. Like, it's not gonna fit. But there are times where people just aren't willing to understand, and they're like, no, I absolutely don't agree with that. We can't have her here. And those ones are a little bit harder because they're not even willing to take a second to even look into the heart behind it. And those ones definitely hurt a little more, but I'm getting to a place where unfortunately it's gotten like I've got used to it a bit, and now I'm trying to make sure that I have understanding for those people and patience with those people, because maybe they've had bad experiences with rock bands before. Maybe they've had people who look like me, who dress emo, and like I don't have my makeup on right now, but like who have the darker makeup on, maybe they've had bad experiences with them before, and it's just something that's scary to them than to kind of invite that back into their environment. So I'm trying to come at a place of patience as well, because they need just as much prayer for understanding as I would hope they would extend to me. Um, but yeah, that's the hard part, because it's never something that I'm just like thrown on. They don't understand that like what happened. Like it's always discussed beforehand. So that was the confusing thing. I know a lot of people were confused. They're like, "This doesn't make any sense. Why would a church book something and then not know?" Like, and I'm like, I don't know. That didn't make sense to me. um, but it's really cool because that youth pastor that did end up reaching out to me and apologizing for how it was handled and everything. And so I've seen a lot of great conversations come out of this. Uh, and that was the whole reason I made the post. I wasn't expecting it to go viral. I wasn't expecting all these news sources to pick it up. Like that was just a huge blessing. And it's just God turning something around for his glory, which is awesome.
You have a much more mature and a much calmer attitude about this, I admit, than even I do, because listening to you talk about it kind of makes me mad. And you are so cool about it, and that really impresses me and shows me truly where your heart is. I don't even know where to start. I mean, it upsets me that much to where I am having to like. People seem to, for whatever reason, not have much interest in reaching the youth. You hear people complain that the church is not full of youth. Where are the young people? Why are the young people not coming here? Why are they not involved? Why are they not interested in God? Now open your hymnal to page 245 or whatever.
Right.
And when there's an artist, when there's someone who's, like, when representation is so important. When you look and you see somebody who looks like you, and you know somebody who has gone through something similar to what you've gone through, and they're on stage proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ and telling you that things will get better and there's a way, you relate to that, and that draws you. And if we want young people in the church, we need people that they identify with on stage. That I've always hated Youth Sunday, and my pastor used to make fun of me for saying that, which I don't hate Youth Sunday. I hate the concept that the only time youth can be involved in church is on Sunday. Like, this is their church every Sunday, every day, 365 days a year. This is their church. They should feel a part of it, not once a year or something.
Yeah.
And that you think that people who would want youth involved in the church would bring in the bands, but I don't want to make this about me, but I'm going to tell you a story about me. My high school had a radio station. We played Christian music and Christian programming, but they only wanted us to play Christian music that they liked. And we literally had CDs with black lines through them on songs that we weren't allowed to play.
Goodness.
And I can't tell you, we had Stephen Curtis Chapman albums with black lines through 9/10 of the songs. Like, we could play one
That's
song off some Stephen Curtis Chapman CDs because they didn't care about the message. They didn't care about the heart behind the song. They're just like, oh, well, that has too much guitar, or we don't like the beat of that. So there were Sandy Patty songs. Surely you know who Sandy Patty is. There were Sandy Patty songs that we weren't allowed to play because they were too rockin'. And that's part of why this triggers me a little bit. And people who look at you and say that they don't, you dress in makeup or black hair or black clothes, and they don't like the way you don't look appropriate for church. Those are the people that I often think probably would not be super welcoming of the disciples if they were the modern equivalent of the disciples walked in and sat down in church on a Sunday.
Yeah.
So again, you're handling this much better than I would. I just wanted to say that you, and I love that God is using it, as you know he would. So he's turned this into something that is obviously, I think, is going to make you a whole lot more popular, but it's also going to draw attention to, hopefully, a whole group of people will find a genre of music that really resonates with them.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed in the articles all talked about your story and your journey. Your website talks about your story and your journey. I couldn't find anywhere that really describes your story and your journey. So let's talk about that a little bit. Who are you? Why do you dress in all black? Why do you wear scary makeup? Why do you growl and scream in your songs? And why do you talk so much about death and macabre stuff and things like that?
So I struggled a lot with my mental health growing up.
let me interrupt you real quick first and just clarify something before we get started. You are not demon possessed, correct?
I am not. I am filled with the Holy Spirit.
It's the exact opposite of that, in fact, right? Because that's one of the things that I hear people say is, well, they sound demon possessed. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
I've gotten a lot of I mean, I've gotten a lot of those over the years, but the past few days that it's just been magnified for yeah, the amount of support I've experienced has been overwhelming. But yeah, I think it's crazy that when the rock, like the regular mainstream rock pages I posted about it, there's people like, I don't Christian metal is stupid, blah blah blah, whatever. Like that doesn't bother me. But there's been a ton of support. A lot of people you wouldn't even know were Christians regularly are like jumping in like, "Oh, no, like this is wrong. We need to rally around this girl." Like, "Oh, that's awesome." But then when the Christian sites posted it, man, the most hateful people came after me.
yes.
And so I'm like, "Okay, I have to not read those."
Yeah,
Um,
what you've seen the comment, "There is no hate like Christian love," and that
I've seen that a
always goes
lot,
when I
yeah.
see that, that always makes me mad because I'm like, "No, you just misunderstand," and then something like this comes along and you see it, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, there it is."
Yeah, that's the hard part. And it's like I'm trying to find a balance between, you know, responding to people like that, be like, well, no, like this is not all Christians. I believe in Jesus, and there are a ton of people who have rallied around me. But a lot of times, if somebody is commenting that, they've already had a terrible experience with somebody who proclaimed to know Jesus, and especially on social media, a lot of times people just want to argue and fight already. Like they're not really trying to have a conversation. So I'm like, okay, who do I respond to? Who do I just leave it alone?
I have to remind myself of that regularly. They don't want their opinion changed, they don't want facts, they just wanna fight. So, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So you were telling us your story. So you're not demon possessed
Yes,
is the
I'm not
beginning.
demon possessed. I actually grew up in a Christian home. My father was very present and is still very present in my life due to unpopular belief. I have a great relationship with my father. My mom and my father both raised me in the church. I have two sisters. Um, Me and my sisters used to make Christian music together in a band that was kind of similar music to what I play now. And God had kind of called us into that and like trying to figure that out when we were really young. So when I was 11, we played our first show. My parents were helping us write the music at that point. Our guitar teacher was helping us write music and learn how to do that on our own. I struggled with my mental health when I was young, and I thought it was cool to wear black clothes, and I wore those to church, and I got looks from people, even, like, as young as 11, 12, like, 14. I had, like, elder men in the church coming up and asking me, like, "What are you trying to portray with your clothing?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm just a kid. Like, I think this looks cool. There is no underlying agenda here." And, I found solace in rock music. Somebody said that our band kinda sounded like Flyleaf, and I was like, "Who's Flyleaf?" And I looked them up, and I was like, This is confusing to me. I don't know if I like this. Is a girl screaming? But something about this keeps pulling me back, like, and I'm intrigued by this. I've never heard this type of music before, and, yeah, I was hooked after that. We grew up on Skillet, and then I found when I found Flyleaf, then I found Firefly, and I found a band called Be As Human, and all bands that were kind of heavier for that time, singing about Jesus, singing about things that they had struggled with, and I was like, "Oh, and these people look like me, but they still love Jesus, and they still are able to be used by Jesus. That's really cool. I think I wanna do something like that. I think that would be awesome." And then I started to, go to music festivals, and I was introduced to bands that weren't in the Christian scene, like Bring the Horizon and Asking Alexandria, and I started to get really, like, involved with that fan base, and, I found kind of, like, a bit of a home in that sort of music, but unfortunately, a lot of that music is it relates to you because it talks about their struggle, but there's not a lot of resolution there, and, some of it is very anti-God, and so I'd be like, "I don't wanna listen to that, but I'll listen to the other stuff." But there wasn't really any type of hope there. And, there's some songs that were kind of uplifting, kind of positive message, but a lot of it, like, that I was listening to just kind of kept me stuck in that struggle that I had. And, we were performing as a band, playing Christian festivals and stuff. And, you know, I grew up also playing in bars and clubs because the music wasn't quite accepted in the church areas that I was in. And, you're pouring your heart out to people every night. You're talking about Jesus. And I didn't really have a church community. And I didn't have a place where we were home to go back and like have real conversations with people. It was just me, my sisters, and my parents against the world. And that, I started to struggle with an eating disorder because we had been pulled out of school to do homeschool. And so there wasn't really anything in my life that I had any sort of like control over. And so it was easy to just then be obsessed over the food. And there was this perfection that I had to achieve because all these other bands had these airbrushed looks and like everything on social media is fake. Everything in the magazines are fake. But I didn't understand that as a teenager. And so I was like, I have to live up to this perfect image and I can't do that. And how do I look like these people who are grown adults, by the way? And I'm still like a growing child.
Right.
Um, and I struggled with that for several years. And my dad stepped in one night and he was like, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose you. I've watched you try to fix this on your own. And I have tried to be supportive and kind of take a backseat as you navigate this, but it's got to a point where I'm afraid I'm going to lose you and I'm not going to lose my daughter. Like, we need to have a serious talk about this. You're killing yourself. And, if we need to, we will find like a rehab center for people who struggle with eating disorders and we will find a place for you there, or we could try and fix it here as a family. But if this doesn't work, we will find you a place to go because I'm not going to lose you. And that terrified me a lot. And I was like, what do you, oh, like, and it was kind of like a reality check in that moment. And, I worked hard on getting better just because I didn't want to be like sent away. And I had a relationship with God, but I wasn't really talking to him because I was just trying to figure it out on my own. And my husband Blaze, he was just my best friend at the time, and he was the one who was actually like, "Hey, have you talked to God about this? I know you're struggling and you're getting frustrated because you feel like you're not really getting any better and things are still hard for you. Like, have you been talking to God?" I was like, "No, I don't think he cares." And he was like, "Why wouldn't God care? Like, your earthly father is so afraid to lose you and is willing to do anything to help you get better. Like, God cares about you a million times more than that. Like, of course he cares." And I was like, I don't know. Like, he's just this like overlording God. Like, I don't think he cares about my little life. And he's like, yes, he does. Like, you need to pray. You need to talk about this. And he just encouraged me to really deepen my relationship with God at that point. And so then I got like these notebooks. I would just fill them with prayers, like writing and being angry and crying and like, God, why won't you heal me? Like, I'm doing everything that I should be doing. Like, I'm in a band telling people about you. Like, why won't I be fixed? Like, what is my problem? Like, are you angry at me? And and then I was talking with Blaze again, and he was like, I don't think you want to get better. And I think that's part of it. I think you're getting in the way of your healing. And I think you need to ask God to give you the want to heal because you can't get better if you don't want to. And I was like, okay, whatever. God, give me the want to heal. Like, and like not believing it, but just saying it over and over again. And the more I said it, the more I would start to think, okay, well, maybe I do want to get better. Maybe this is something that I need to like actually ask God genuinely. And so then instead of like just writing it, it became like, okay, God, I do think I want to get better, but I don't know how. Like, can you help me? And it was, I think, like 2 years process of like kind of rewiring my brain and working with God. There were times where I would fall back into the behaviors and then people would help me get back out of them. And now it's to a point where like I don't struggle with it anymore. And I used to be these thoughts in the back of my mind. I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to have to fight those, I guess, for the rest of my life. But when we started Magdalene Rose, we actually wrote a song about God healing me from that. And the more that I talked to other people and like told them like, hey, this healing is available to you too, the more those voices went away as well. And so it's like those thoughts aren't even there anymore. And it's just this complete healing. I was healed physically, but now mentally that those things are also gone as well. Then um I think when I was 19, I was still kind of struggling and I talked to my parents. I was like, "Hey, I think I need a little bit of extra help because I don't know what's going on." And I was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, and they had, it was in the middle of COVID and everything, so, like, everybody was going through something, and they're like, "Well, how long have you been dealing with this?" I'm like, "Probably a long time." Like, "I don't know." Like, "It's been a while." And they were like, "Okay, well, we're just gonna give you some medication because, everybody is booked right now. We can't get you into anything. So, we at least have a psychiatrist who's available who can help you." And I started medication for that. And I hid that for a long time because I thought, well, maybe that makes me weak and maybe that makes me less of a person. And maybe my faith isn't strong enough because I have to go take medicine. And yeah, I was still talking to people about Jesus, still sharing my story. And in 2022, God kind of called me and my sisters out of that band we were in together, and it really felt like my whole life had just imploded, and I was like, "I have no idea what to do, like, this has been my life for so long, I don't even know who I am." Like, I thought that I had given up my childhood and my teenage years, all of this for you, God, like, why would you take that away? Like, what am I supposed to do? And I had called place at his family because we were dating now at this time, and, I was going through school, and I was like, "Okay, well, when I graduate college, like, maybe we could get married, like, I wanna get college out of the way first, though," and then I called them, I was like, "I have no idea, like, a train wreck has just hit my life." That they were like, "Well, come up here, like, we'll help you figure it out," like, I was like, "You guys have been doing this for 20 years, like, I think I'm still supposed to do music, but what if I'm not?" And they're like, "We'll help you figure it out. Just come up here." And so I came and visited them in Tennessee, and um, Joseph was like the first one to even bring up the idea of being a solo artist. He's like, "Have you ever thought of that? Like, we could find you a band if you want to make a big band name." I was like, "I don't even know what I would call the band. Like, I don't know." And he was like, "Well, you could also be a solo artist. You could just go by your name." And I was like, "That's the number one thing I have feared the most. I have never wanted to be a solo artist. Would much rather just be in the background or be like a group of people. Like, I don't want people to look at just me. That's terrifying." And he was like, "Okay, well, let's just pray about it. We'll continue to come up with ideas." And the more we prayed about it, the more I was like, I really think God is pushing me to this. And like, why would you do that to me? Because I don't want to do this. um, we made the decision, I think a few months after that, and I was like, okay, I think this is something that we should go for. And they were very quick. Some of them were very quick to just be like, "Well, we'll bring you on your first tour. If you hate it and you feel like, okay, maybe you made a wrong decision, maybe, you want to go into counseling work, maybe you want to go work at McDonald's, or you want to be a hairstylist, whatever you want to do, we'll help you figure it out." And I was like, I'm scared. Like, I've only ever toured with my family. I've only ever toured with my sisters. I won't be able to see them. Like, how am I supposed to have relationships with them? And like, this is what normal people do. Like, we'll help you figure it out. Like, you have a phone. You need to figure out how to call them, be like, have that type of relationship with them. That is where it's important that, your relationship isn't just because you're in close proximity with them. You have a relationship with them because you love them and you're putting effort. And I was like, okay. And it was very awkward and weird at first. I'd never been in a band with anybody that wasn't my sisters, let alone boys on stage. And I was like, oh, this is really weird. Like, I used to play bass and sing, and now I didn't even have a bass for a safety instrument. And I was like, what do I do with my hands? Then I started to just, kind of get used to it. And, we shared my story more and more. And, I was still medicated at this point, but, I had always hoped like maybe one day I wouldn't have to be medicated. Maybe one day I would find that healing, but I didn't know how to survive without it at that point. And, um, you know, in the middle of all of that, it was still really hard. I was trying to figure out how to navigate relationships with my family away from them. And, I was struggling with night terrors, and, the depression part of it was obviously escalated because of all that. There was a lot of anxiety. I was around people that I didn't know super well. Like, I knew Blaze, but I didn't really like know people enough. Like, and then to go straight from that to living with them in a tour bus, like, was like a lot of crazy emotion. And so it was really overwhelming. And there was a point where it just seemed like it would be easier to just take myself out of the equation because there's a lot of pain there. And I almost did. It sucks to even say that, as a Christian, but yeah, it was just really painful. There was a lot of just heaviness there. I made a split second decision to stay, and God has just worked through all of that. Right before me and Blaze got married, I was still trying to keep in contact with my doctor. I hadn't quite switched over doctors yet because I was in between living in Florida and Tennessee, and I stopped getting responses from them, and I was like, this might be bad. Like, if you're not responding to me, I can't get medication. I don't think I can live. Like, I'm already struggling with that idea in general. Like, I think I need this. Like, what do I do? And I tried calling them. I tried calling their emergency line. I tried emailing them. I tried faxing them. Like, I literally any option I could think of, and there was just no response. And I had told Blaze, and he was the only one who knew. And he's like, okay, we'll figure this out. Let's talk to my parents. And before we could even do that, his dad had come up to the front of the bus. And he was like, hey, are you okay? Like, I just want to check in on you. I know things have been crazy. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, okay, well, what we can do, I know that you've expressed wanting to try to be off this medication before. Like, is that something you want to do now? Like, do you think you're able to do that? And I was like, I really don't know. Like, I think I would like to try, but that's really scary. Like, what if it doesn't work? What if I like have to go to an emergency room or something? And he's like, that's what we're here for. Like, we will find an emergency room if something goes wrong. Like, but if you really want to try to not like have to take medication anymore, like we're all for it. Like, we'll be here, we'll be praying for you if we need to get doctors involved, because that's not how you're supposed to stop taking medication at all. You're supposed to be doing that with professional help. But I just didn't have anybody to go to. And he was like, well, me and Lori, we can find a doctor in Tennessee. Because I think they were on Winter Jam at the moment. I was just there to take pictures and film videos for them. And they were like, we can find a doctor when we get home. We can get you in an emergency clinic. Like, we'll do what we need to do. But, we have a whole family here who can pray for you, who can watch you, who can make sure you're okay. And he was like, but Maggie, if this doesn't work, that doesn't make you weak, and that doesn't make you less of a person. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with your faith. This might just not be the time that God has for you to be off this. That's okay. And I was like, nobody has ever told me that before. And like, obviously, you have people who are like, oh yeah, telling you somewhat like, oh, well, you're so strong, you're doing this. But there's always a part of the back of your mind where people think that I don't have faith. People think that I don't believe in God strong enough. Like, maybe I don't. And he was the first one to be just so bold about it, so blatant about it. Like, no, this doesn't mean your faith is wrong. God uses doctors, he uses medicine, and maybe this is just not the right time. And so that really gave me the courage to like just try. And we had to wean myself off the medication. And I had them praying for me. I had Blaze literally monitoring me like 24/7. Like, he was so worried for me. But he also like was so confident that this was going to be the time that it worked. I had to have just that like free falling trust in Jesus. I was like, okay, well, if it doesn't work, God is still here. He still will find a way to protect me. We'll find a doctor. It wasn't like the smoothest sailing, but there wasn't anything crazy that happened. And, I had all these emotions rushing back in. And, the medication I was taking, it had kind of plateaued me. That way I wouldn't have these really, really low lows, but I also wasn't able to really experience this extreme happiness anymore. I know that's not the case for everybody, but that was how my thing was happening. And it was crazy because by the end of that tour, a band called Kane was playing, and they brought out Logan's wife and explained her whole testimony, how she had been, you know, experienced abuse in her childhood and that had become an alcoholic. And, she was supposed to be with Logan, but Logan was like, I've tried to get you the help that you need, but you don't want it. I can't be with somebody who is just continuing to go into these like dark places and is hurting me. Like, you're not willing to see our side. You're not willing to put in the effort when we've tried everything. Like, I can't marry you in this space. And after that, like God met her in her car and just changed her life. And she was like, oh my goodness, the world has gotten so much bigger. And they shared that whole story. And she came out, she was like, it's 6 years. I've been sober. Like, we've been married. We have beautiful children now. And I was just like crying. I was like, Blaze, what is happening? Why am I crying? Am I upset? He's like, no, you're crying happy tears. And I was like, I don't remember the last time I did that. And I have been medication free since like the spring of 2024. And, there's still times where, it gets tough, but God has given me people who help me pull me out of those places and I don't get stuck in them anymore. And He's given me the strength to fight through them. Um, it, it's hard because I feel like all of these big moments are literally just because I tried to fix it myself. And if I would have just let God do His thing, it would have been so much easier. And if I would have gotten out of the way, it would have been so much better. But I have such a problem with controlling things sometimes. And, God is still working on me through all of that. And, but that's a lot of what we write our music about. It's about the transformation God has done in my life. And I speak openly about it because if somebody is going through something similar to me and they're thinking that maybe it makes them weak or maybe it makes them unworthy of love, like I want to be the first person to tell them that that's not true. And I want them to know that they're not alone. And even in the middle of all these struggles, there's still hope and you can still find freedom in Jesus. And there's still healing in Jesus. And sometimes it doesn't look exactly the way that you want it to or that you think it's supposed to. And, there was times in my life where I was so angry and confused with God because I was like, I don't know why you're doing this. But it then led up to so much better things in my life. And, I have a husband now and I get to be in a band with some of my best friends. I get to travel with a family on the road. And, there's just been so much blessings that God has brought into my life on the other side of all of this pain. And, it's so worth it to keep fighting and to keep pushing through. And, um, you know, if God doesn't pull you directly out of that moment, sometimes He just needs you to see that He's walking with you in that moment and He's not going to give up on you. He's willing to fight with you. And that's what at least I try to convey and what I write, the things that I share online, things that I share at concerts, because I want people to know that there is hope.
You are clearly the kind of person that people should want to come and speak to their youth. You're the kind of person that people should want singing at their church. First of all, I mean, that's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. That
Yeah.
there's so much there to unpack. I have to begin by saying thank you for letting Blaze out of the friend zone. Clearly, you have an amazing best friend and a wonderful husband and a tremendous father-in-law. Clearly, you have a wonderful family that you've married into. It sounds like, to love and support
Yeah.
you like that, and that is fantastic. And I would say that God can bring healing for people who are listening. God can bring healing through medication, through counseling, through sources that we wouldn't necessarily prefer. We would love that miraculous Jesus touch you moment and you're healed. And sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's a journey. So if you're somewhere in that journey, stick with it. I would say, most definitely, I am glad you're still here. I'm glad you chose to stay here with us. As somebody who has struggled a little bit as well, it feels worse when you're a Christian, uh, when you're having a hard way to go. And, I came from a great home too. My dad was a pastor. And when you come from a perfect or near perfect picture looking, family situation, and you don't have, abuse or trauma or something like that necessarily to point at, you feel guilty for feeling depressed. You feel guilty for feeling disconnected. And then when you're a Christian on top of it, you feel like you're letting down the kingdom. You feel like you're letting God down because you're not portraying the Christian life. And life, Jesus came so that we may have life more abundantly. And you're not portraying abundant life to people because you don't feel abundantly. And so you feel like a fraud inside sometimes. And it's that perseverance and that seeking God and allowing God to really, get in there and do what he needs to do. That seems to be the key to that. And the very, very first step is doing what you did, and that's choosing to stay here.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you chose that.
Yeah.
You have just an amazing story. I'm sorry, I'm reeling just a little bit from your story. So the way you express your life now is through your music. And one of the things that I noticed in the themes of your music is there seems to always be hope in the songs, right? There's always something for people to cling on to. Um and that sounds like that's your real message. Do you during your concerts, do you kind of speak a little bit, or is it primarily singing? How much do you
Yeah.
share?
Um, there's certain songs that we definitely take a moment to highlight and talk about the meaning behind them, especially when we play church shows. We also play at clubs and venues, and sometimes they're a little bit stricter on time, and so I can't explain every song, but at least at those shows, I try to take a moment and say like, "Hey, we believe in Jesus, and I believe the healing He's done in my life, He can do for you." And it doesn't matter if the crowd's gonna boo or not. Like I'm gonna tell them about Jesus. But when we play at churches, we have a little bit more leeway to explain things. And sometimes, especially when we play youth events, the youth pastors like, can you talk about this a little bit more? Because I know you have a song written about self harm, and I want the kids to know that it's not condoning that. And I was like, of course I'll share that because it's not. And we wrote this song to let people know that they are not alone, that they are seen. And I had a friend who struggled with self harm like tremendously. She asked me, she's like, hey, do you ever write music about that? And I haven't really heard any music about that. Like, could you do that? And I was like, yeah, of course. I have personally have never struggled with that. So like I hope I do it justice. And I was really scared to write something like that. I wrote a song for one of my friends who had struggled with her mental health after experiencing childhood sexual abuse. And that's something that I never experienced. I with our music, I want to talk openly about these problems. And I want people to know that their stories deserve to be heard and that they have a voice and they can share these things. And that even though these really tough life moments happen, you could still find Jesus in the midst of all of that. And, we have some songs that call out the people who are abusers. We have some songs that are like our song "Guerrilla Warfare." Sometimes people are really confused or like scared of that song because it's a very heavy song, like musically, but also like lyrically, it just talks about being the villain in somebody's story and like learning that that's all you'll ever be and kind of like delving into that. And we're like, this isn't like telling people, "Oh, go be the villain, go be a bad person." It's like, no, this is the dangers of letting that anger, letting that bitterness corrupt you. This is what you could become. And that was what I was becoming at one point. And it's important to not let that control you and to, you know, the Bible does talk about being angry, but like not sinning in that. It's like you have to have a healthy outlet for that anger, but don't let that bitterness and anger consume you. And you know, so we always take a moment to at least talk about some of our songs and explain it. And then I tell people like, hey, if you have questions about these songs, if you have, questions about life in general, I'm gonna be on my table all night. Like I would love to talk to all of you. I don't have all the answers to life, but I can listen and we can figure things out together. And so, I take a moment on stage, but then I take a long time after as well, just trying to, you know, be with people and be a family with people, especially if someone has never experienced something like that before.
There's a lot of isolation in it, I think. I was
Yeah.
talking to a friend just recently that I feel like that we do such a good job, and social media is the perfect example of this, where you talked about everything on there is fake. We do
Yeah.
such a good job of putting up this facade that life is great, that everything is okay. There's nothing, bad going on in my world at all. Everything is perfect. And we feel like if we are struggling, or at least I do when I'm struggling, that I'm alone and I'm the only one. And I find myself comparing, which is the thief of joy. And I compare and I'm like, well, they seem to be doing great. They're doing great. Why am I having such a hard way to go with this? And my friend was like, nobody's okay. Don't think that anybody is okay. Everybody's got something to some degree going on. And people like you who are out there, who are being so awesome and forthright about it and showing a great example of how God can help you through it and then how you can in turn do what I think is the ultimate thing, and that is to help other people through it. You're such a great and shining example. Again, I don't know why people don't Everybody, you should be booked at every church, like every church. That's just
Well,
my
thank
opinion.
you.
So thank you for what you do. All right. I am going to say that we will let people know on our social media platforms where you are. Give me your website because I want people to know because you're right now in the Southwest, but you're all over the place and you're adding
Yes.
more dates all the time. And I hope that you do nothing but add dates. I hope you can't get that second album out because you're so busy doing tour dates. That's what I want. So
Thank you.
hit me with all of your social media or website or however you want people to find you.
Yeah, all of our stuff matches, so it's easy to find. It's official magdalenrose.com. And then all of our social media is official Magdalene Rose. That way it's easy. It's a long name, but if you only have to type it out once, it should be easier to find. And all of our stuff is linked everywhere too. So our website has all of our social media links, has our music links. Our social media has all of the links to the other ones. We've tried to have everything cross-linked so it's easy to find us everywhere.
And you have a ton of stuff on YouTube, and of course, you're on all the social media, or not social media, the music streaming platforms. I've been listening to
Yes.
you on Apple Music, so I know you're there, but I'm sure you're on Spotify and everywhere else.
Yeah,
Right?
we're on all the big ones, some of the obscure ones. We're on all the streaming sites.
And again, the cool thing I think about you guys is that you like do a little bit of everything within that genre kind of rock. So if you like punk, if you like metal, if you like something in between, you're going to find a song you like.
Yes.
And it's a
Hopefully.
gateway. You'll find others you like. All right. Well, Magdalene Rose, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast.